Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today I wanted to go ahead and cover the maintenance phase again. It's been a minute and I'm kind of missing the sound of their angelic voices. And I don't know, honestly, I wanted to choose this episode where they're talking about soy boys purely for entertainment purposes. I know that that's kind of bad to say, but I kind of just wanted to do something kind of light and fun. And I miss you guys. It's been a minute since I filmed like this. I mean, you're bae. So I wanted to do this basically for all those reasons. I think it might be interesting because they're being really hyper politicized in this episode, and I just think it should be kind of interesting to hear. I don't know. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll still have some hypo content considering they're talking about estrogen and they're talking about soy. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's have fun. Let's go. Are you guys ready for their angelic voices? Let's go.
Also, due to my hand problems, I'm no longer holding my mic. I have a mic stand now, and so I can do the clap emojis. Like, give the men estrogen.
I want to say it, but I'm not going to because I'm going to be tame today. Not really, but we'll spice it up. I don't want to call a spade because I'm also a spade. I'll put it to you that way. Let's go.
Okay, I have one, but it might be too scientific.
Oh, interesting.
As an expert in this field, it's
expert in this field, I can't wait to hear what comes next.
To educate the public. Welcome to Maintenance Phase, the podcast that says yestrogen to all forms of estrogen. People thought I wasn't an expert.
Not surprised, considering you guys are both probably hypolicious.
Thought I didn't know, but I do know.
Big I am Knuff energy.
If this one was about testosterone,
We already have a Barbie virtue signal, and it's only been God knows how long. Wow, this is going to be... All right, let's go.
it would have been, say, yestosterone.
It wouldn't have been testosterone, the San Francisco treat.
I'm Michael Hobbs.
I am Aubrey Gordon. If you would like to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/maintenancephase. You can also subscribe through Apple Podcasts Premium. It's the same audio content. Michael.
Aubrey, I'm so excited. I'm not even letting you get to the today we're doing part.
You're
I'm
so
jumping
excited.
right in.
Tell me what you're excited about.
Because I am such a beta cuck person.
Very true. I will agree with you 100%. Now, I myself, I am embracing my more submissive side lately as I'm getting a little healthier. Definitely, leaning more into that type of role in a dating sense. And I find that it's more at home. I'm not like a super alpha type. I'm attracted to alpha types, but I'm not one myself. But that doesn't mean that I'm a cuck. Not at all. But I would say he probably is. So thank you for the honesty.
They're like, I already feel seen. This one is about the soy boy thing, right? Men are growing boobs because they're eating tofu or something?
Yes. Today we're going to be talking about sort of the right wing.
I do have boobs. So they're coming from somewhere. Do you guys want to see the girls? Let's show the girls. They don't really hide. They kind of hide in this shirt. But no, this is definitely estrogen related. Okay? So that's some good tea. All right? That's not normal. I can say that. That's okay. It's not normal. It's not healthy. It is a sign of something, okay?
Insult soy boy, which has sort of morphed into almost a plank in the Republican platform.
Yeah, it's really bleak.
And we're also going to figure out what the underlying science.
Okay, so all my lefties that follow me, what is the rush to defend soy boy energy? Like, I don't understand it. Is it just like we gotta be for it because the right is against it? Is it one of those kind of things? Or like, is there actually like a deep reason why you gotta defend the soy boys? That's my question to you.
From all of that.
What does the research say about fapping? What does the FAP Cochrane review say?
So just to start us off, for folks who are unfamiliar, first of all, congratulations. Soy boy is an insult or sort of pejorative that's very popular in far-right spaces, especially online spaces.
It's not exactly just far right. I would say it's definitely right. Like, I think even a center right person, I think even someone like Sydney Watson, which she's a pretty center right person online, she would probably say it too. It's very right wing, just all across. So I will actually say no. You'll hear it everywhere. I've said it many a time. All my friends that are on the right have said it multiple times. It's a little dated, to be honest. It's kind of like a 2017 vibe. It's kind of like they're a little out of touch these days, like with the times. People don't really say that anymore, but I don't expect them to be like all up on it. You do still hear it sometimes, but like it had a heyday. Okay, like back in like 2018, like in the teens during the Trump years, it was like it was like all you ever said. It was everything. It was all people ever said. So I think it's like definitely not as popular now, but yeah, let's continue.
It goes in the same sort of category as calling men like cucks or low T or beta males or
yeah, that's the kind of stuff you're gonna hear more nowadays. Is those things. So
new males.
I have been called all of those things, and I agree.
True. I think he is.
Yeah, that's right. You're part of the extended cuckiverse.
Oh.
So I thought we would watch a little video clip.
That's really scarring. Like I said, I am definitely femme queen energy beyond, like, not a doubt at all. That's also kind of why I wanted to cover this, because I think it's interesting to cover it from my perspective, I guess. But it's like, yeah, like, I get it. I just don't know. Like, I don't know. I will describe myself as estrogen-y when I feel estrogen-y. So it is a thing. I do acknowledge it. I do say it is a bad thing. It is a bad thing. It's not great. Makes you ill. Makes you hypolicious. Especially as a man, it's really like a male body cannot tolerate estrogen very well at all. Like in a woman's body, estrogen is a part of the cycle and it's like a whole thing. So it has like a definite, much more of a role in a woman's body, and women can tolerate higher levels. But in a male's body, it doesn't have as much of a role at all. And it's really only a stress hormone. It's really only a stress response. It's really, you know, it probably does have some tangential and supporting roles in sexual attraction. I've heard some of it in bone formation or things like that. Like there are still roles, like every hormone exists in everybody, and there are different roles for those hormones. But when it's chronically elevated, it really does harm men a lot. It does harm women as well, but it has to be much higher for those differences. Okay, let's continue.
Of someone who I thought would be a real expert in this, explaining what a soy boy is.
Oh, no.
Soy is like a political fruit or a vegetable.
Is it?
Yeah. People call you a soy boy. If you're a Republican, people call weak men soy boys.
I never knew that.
Soy is one of the rare foods that's actually attached to being a bitch.
That's a pussy food?
Okay, now what I will say is this. This is going to get a little bit of hate on my own side or whatever. I told you guys, I lean right. I think that's a more accurate term because I do deviate from right-wing stuff sometimes, like I'm about to. This is going to hurt. To all my righties in the audience, I'm sorry that I have to tell you this. Beer is more estrogenic than soy. Let me say that again. Beer is more estrogenic than soy. So if you're drinking beer all the time, then you get that soy boy energy. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. Drinking tons of beer is very estrogenic. And that is very popular in right-wing spaces. So there you go. I just... the lefties can like revel that I gave some shade to the right, but I just got to keep it 100. So yes, soy boy is real, but there's more to it than that. And a lot of right wingers drink a lot of beer. So you get plenty of estrogen yourself on the right. Okay.
And this is not my perspective. This is just, I just think it's a plant. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I think soy lowers your testosterone.
I think there's like estrogen.
Yeah. Yeah. Soy isoflavones can produce estrogen-like activity in the body, mimicking the effects of natural estrogen. Yeah. But I think
You can grow titties off of soy?
Not quite, but it might feminize you.
Fuck.
Your hormone production.
This is
So again, it's not just soy. There's actually a lot of different things that will do this. Anything with hops, so like beer, super estrogen central. The marijuana is in the hops family, super estrogenic. You got your alcohol is estrogenic. You have your soy. Flaxseed is like one of the worst foods ever. Especially as a man, like do not ever have flaxseed. Oh my God. It is like the most testosterone destroying, the most estrogenic. It is just horrible. And I used to have it all the time. And oh my God, do I regret it? Oh, it never helped me. I can assure you of that. It never did. But yeah, there's a lot of foods that are very, very high in estrogen. A lot of your legumes are high in estrogen. So it's bigger than soy. And I think that's what people don't understand. So if they're going to go across or go for the approach of attacking soy as stupid, it isn't stupid to attack soy, but it's stupid to attack only soy. But it's like if you really break it down, it gets a little complicated and it doesn't really work as a political talking point anymore. Which means, unfortunately, a lot of right-wingers will lose interest pretty much very quickly because it would require actual lifestyle change and you'd have to actually really do stuff to uplift your testosterone and lower your estrogen. And that does go for women as well. Like I said, the difference is women are always going to have more estrogen than men. It does play a role, but it still shouldn't be too high. And a lot of women do have too low of testosterone. Like if you don't have SEX drive as a woman, your testosterone's probably too low. So there is this sort of anti-testosterone bias in a lot of especially left-wing spaces, or it's not seen as important at all. So I think that it is important. Like all this stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. Your body doesn't give a crap. Your body is still unhealthy. Like it doesn't matter. The best way to put it is if you're voting for Trump or Biden, if you're 400 pounds, you're still not healthy. It doesn't matter, right? And that's kind of what we try to do here. It does not matter. Your body doesn't care who you vote for. Your body is still gonna suffer regardless. So, yeah.
This is how I want to learn my scientific information, from one comedian telling another comedian.
Michael, tell me your thoughts and feelings. Does this comport with what you would expect of Joe Rogan? And does this comport with what you have heard about soy?
Sorry, can you give me a second? I'm just fitting my sports bra because I had some tofu this morning. Very logistically difficult for me.
He really had tofu? Really? Sorry. Stereotype vibes. Okay.
This is like the fucking perfect Joe Rogan thing where he's
Right?
like, I don't know, man. Like, some people think it's like pussifying, but like, I don't know, man. Anyway, why don't we Google that? Oh yeah, it turns out it is. Yeah, here's some crank screenshot from some crank website.
I mean, he brings it back to the I don't believe it at the end of this segment.
Okay.
And Donnell Rawlings, I will say, hilariously chimes in with, I thought it was about being a foodie.
I do think there's probably something to that though, in that it's kind of coded as like liberal, effete, ivory tower, like lib bullshit, right? I mean, this is...
It has a lot to do with veganism. It's because a lot of vegans are very left-wing and they're very vocal about it. Not all vegans, hashtag not all vegans. I've actually, because I was weirdly involved in the vegan scene on YouTube, which is a whole other story that we don't need to get into. Because of that, I knew a lot of right-wing vegans as well. So I know personally that there are right-wing vegans, left-wing vegans, but the majority and the optics of it is that it's left-wing. And so that's kind of the connection, that where it came from. It didn't come from nothing.
The whole thing is like it's a culture war thing more than, I mean, obviously more than it's any kind of scientific stuff, but it's basically like people I don't like are like really into tofu, and therefore tofu must be like uniquely pernicious in some way.
Totally. So the people I don't like part is sort of the caricature of a soy boy, right?
Right.
They're usually depicted as being sort of unathletic. They don't really have muscle tone. They are generally seen to have feminine traits, small hands, small features, breast tissue is part of it, right? They're usually shown wearing glasses and with an untrimmed beard.
Okay.
That's like a little scraggly, right?
Okay, there's like a whole aesthetic.
And there is a face that's called soy face.
Oh,
Okay.
that's where you go like this. That's soy face. There you go. You guys got it. The funny thing about this for me is that I am gay. I am very gay. So I don't have to really care about this stuff. But, you know, I get to just play around. I get to just do whatever I want because I'm special. And I'm just kidding. But no, it's just, it doesn't bother me. Like if I have soy face. But I don't usually do that. But I will say before I started this journey, hypo-wise, I did have much higher estrogen. Much, much higher. But it's not always just like, oh, you're feminine. Like, no, like actually, when it comes to men, estrogen tends to make men angrier, actually. So it's actually not true. It's like your typical estrogenic man is kind of like an alcoholic stereotype where he's just like wanting to get in a fight with everybody all the time. That's very estrogen-y. Or like they're yelling or they harp on things all the time. Like they can be kind of naggy. That's more of estrogen-y man vibes. So it's not actually being super gay. That doesn't really have to do with it. But I get the comparison and I can understand where it came from, but it's not actually true at all. Like it's a lot of misconceptions about estrogen and about how it actually affects men and about how it actually like plays out in the vast majority of men. Again, remember, the gay population is very low. It's not at all the majority whatsoever. Not at all. It is definitely like overrepresented online because I think a lot of gay men, they want to be seen. Gay men are drawn to positions of prestige and power. It's just very much a thing. Like even for me, like I want to be seen too. Like that's like the gay part of me that's like that. So there is a reason why you see a lot of gay men, but it doesn't mean that gay men are like all over the place. They're not. So yeah, basically it affects men in a different way than the stereotype is what I'm trying to say. And you will see a lot of those like vegan-y, drinking a bunch of soy lattes type of guys. If you make them angry, they'll get very aggressive very quickly. They'll go from 0 to 100. And I think they're the type that would punch you in the face really fast. So there is kind of that quality that is not really talked about, but it's because estrogen in society is incredibly promoted because it's seen as a female hormone. It's actually a stress hormone. And yes, it is involved in the female reproductive cycle, but it is not a female hormone. So, yeah, that doesn't actually exist. Like, men have estrogen, women have testosterone. It's not real.
I prefer this name, Soylent Grin.
Oh, that's pretty good. Wait, let me Google Soylent. Oh, it's sort of like the Aziz Ansari face in Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
He's
that's
like,
right.
hey.
Big
Yeah.
open mouth, surprised smile.
I was just about to be like, I make that face in movies all the time. But that's kind of proof of their point, I guess, if you're in this world.
Gosh, her laugh is always, to me, it's so forced. It's just so ridiculous. But what I will say, too, is like, I guess they're just coming on here to be like right-wing bad. Is that like the vibe? Like, I didn't realize that Maintenance Phase is a political podcast, I guess. You know, it's like, it's just kind of cringy to listen to be honest. It's just like, what is the point? Like, you're not even talking about fatness. Like, that's why I wanted to watch this, because I'm like, this is so weird. So let's see.
This is quietly just an intervention for you.
Yeah. Joe Rogan's right over your shoulder. Tell him the face thing.
Mike, there's life after being a gay person. You don't have to live this way.
I will say, I have huge hands. I didn't know that was like a masculine feminine thing, but like, for a beta cuck, like a 5'6", effeminate, prancing little man, I have giant hands.
Maybe you're not a soy boy.
The whole point of this episode for me is to prove my masculinity.
So in addition to all of those sort of physical features,
The ship has sailed on that. I will say that is not my point at all of doing this, okay? I am not in agreement with him. That is not why I'm doing this whatsoever.
the sort of soy boy stereotype also includes them being vegetarian or vegan.
Yeah.
They're also considered to be
Okay, she's got some of her right-wing stuff on check.
SJWs, but not like the sort of like boundless rage of lady SJWs. The idea here is that they're sort of the cowed male equivalent.
And they're sort of betraying their sex, too, right? It's like, well, as a man, you're sort of supposed to be like loyal to other men, right? You're not supposed to be like talking about like, oh.
That's projection. That's more of how women think. That's not how men think at all, for the record. That's more of like a lefty feminist woman views that, but then they, if they're kind of a bitch, then they'll throw it under the bus the second they don't like a girl. So it's not actually that real either, but they'll at least act like it a lot more. But guys, no. Not unless if you're like 15 or something, like maybe if you're in high school, but no, guys don't ever think that way.
Gender wage gap and stuff, like, come on, man.
Yeah, and I also think
It's more of like, a lot of times men will pile on to women. Like when women are being attacked, they'll pile on because they've had similar experiences with women. So it's more of that, but it's not actually that they're like, I gotta stick up for my bro because he's a bro, like, or I gotta stick up for a guy because he's a guy. Like, they don't think that way at all. Just so you know, you guys are out of touch. Out of touch. It's more so, guy complains about women, other guy has had the same issue with women, so other guy joins in ad nauseum. Okay, that's more so what it is, rather than like a brotherhood thing or a sisterhood thing. It's like, you'll get more of that sisterhood thing on the leftist feminist side. But like I said, in my experience, it's very conditional on how much said woman likes you. If she doesn't, then she'll throw it under the bus in a heartbeat. Anyways, okay, let's continue.
this is a term that is deeply, deeply racialized.
Yeah.
So there's also a little tinge of sort of
What?
like race traitor.
Yeah.
Racialized? What? No. Soy boy is racialized? I don't think so.
In there, right?
Yeah.
So in order to talk about this sort of set of myths and this kind of right-wing panic, we got to talk about soy a little bit.
Ooh.
Soy itself.
Whoa, that was like so weird to hear. I was like, what? I have never heard of that. Ever. I have never heard. Like, no. That is completely wrong. So they were wrong. So I don't think they understand the right very well. But this will be interesting to see. So that was wrong. I'll tell you guys, that was completely off.
Has been cultivated in East Asia for thousands of years. It has a ton of advantages. As a crop, it's hardy.
Yes, but in East Asia, it's also fermented. And they also don't have it as much as we do. We have it in almost everything all the time. And a lot of those qualities, they aren't as bad if it is fermented. So, again, it's a little bit of a not an equivalent type of thing.
It can grow in pretty low quality soil, and it also, like any sort of beans and peas that you might grow, as gardeners know, it will actually enrich the soil for the next crop that you plant.
It sounds like a pretty hardy crop. It sounds pretty manly, honestly. It sounds fairly alpha.
So the 70s is when we start.
It's not that nutritious at all. It's not helpful for thyroid health whatsoever. Most beans are not. I would not suggest it. If you are very hypo, I would not suggest eating tons of beans. I don't think beans are poison, but I don't think they should be a staple at all. It's very much that type of mindset. If you have a little bit of bean in something, it's not going to kill you, but it's not pro-thyroid. So I would not suggest eating tons of beans. Like, if you were to cut out meat and just have beans, that is like completely trash for your thyroid health. It was like a horrible idea.
To see much more of a takeoff of like tofu in particular and soy as like the main event, which is also around the same time that the US starts to experience a real boom in natural foods and health food stores, right? So there's more of an idea that some foods are really good, some foods are really bad, and at this point we start getting layers of moralizing about it and sort of what those foods say about who you are. This is also around the time that people start really wrapping up our understanding of tofu in our understanding of vegetarians. We start getting more of a market for vegetarians and more of a market for vegetarian foods. Things like tofu dogs start popping up in grocery stores. And folks become sort of more aware.
It's horrible.
They are not
Hate it. It's so gross.
Vegetarian, that there is sort of a growing sense that there are more and more vegetarians around them. Right.
We talked about this in our
Gross.
vegetarianism.
Tastes nasty. Even most vegans don't suggest eating that. It's bad. It's seed oil central, PUFA central, estrogen central. It's just horrible. It's horrible for you. Even though the vegans will say it has a lot of sodium in it. The vegans will say it has sodium and I forgot what the other part is. Oh, fat. Because a lot of vegans don't like fat.
Episode, but also, I don't know if this is when it happened, but we also get the social construction of vegetarians and vegans as sort of like holier than thou. I mean, I have not met a vegan like this, but this idea of like they're constantly scolding you and they think they're better than you and all this stuff. Like, I remember this stuff from the 90s.
Can I tell you my theory about where that comes from?
Ooh.
I think it is. So listen, we talked about this a little bit in our food pyramid episode.
Okay, my camera's bugging out on my end, so I'm just going to take my camera off. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if it hurts you. But I'm still here, I promise. I promise you guys.
That there was sort of this push by doctors to define vegetarianism as sort of the heart healthiest diet and the thing you ought to pursue and like cut out animal products. But I think that folks were feeling really judged by that. And externalized that response to feeling judged as like, they're always preaching to you.
People used to mention tofu the way that they would mention.
Okay, the thing is that a lot of vegans are really hostile and extra, and they're just horrible. And it's like a horrible thing. I think part of it is because the diet does not promote thyroid health, so you start to become Karen-ish about it. It's the same thing with keto. These diets are not pro-thyroid, so when you do them, you start to become very zealous and crazy, and it's because you feel horrible. And you, in my opinion, these people start feeling jealous of other people They miss these foods, they miss these things, and so they lash out and they start talking about, oh, well, you're just eating sugar all the time and you're eating meat and you're this, and it kind of is like that. So I think that's where it comes from. But yeah, they're acting like this just never happens, you never hear it, and it's like, no, you do, it's there. It's not always done like super nasty, but it is there. People do proselytize, especially veganism. I mean, come on.
Like John Tesh. As just like the most obviously just like loser shit. Like, that guy eats tofu.
That is a true thing. I think whatever a particular culture or group of people selects as their example of a gross out food is like incredibly telling.
Yeah, super. Yeah.
What I learned in the research of this sort of cultural anxiety about men and men's health is that this is actually a pretty long historical pattern of making fun of vegetarians more when white masculinity feels like it is sort of tenuous or outdated or under threat.
Oh.
So
this is becoming such a bizarre reach. Like, this is where we get into, like, in my opinion, it's like lefty loony world, where it just turns into this like crazy like assumption upon assumption upon assumption upon assumption and upon assumption. And it's just like, you guys have to understand, like, anybody outside the left does not agree with you on any of this. Like, what she just said, I'm like, you sound like a crackpot conspiracy theorist that you always act like nobody, like you always act like everybody else is. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like, okay, that's weird.
Dating back to the 1800s, people in the US and the UK started sort of depicting vegetarians, especially men who are vegetarians, as a kind of threat to like hegemonic masculinity, right? That there's this implicit threat of a man deciding to do something other than what quote unquote manly men are supposed to do.
This man is 5'6" and he hosts a podcast.
Partly this sort of response is because of the cultural association between...
Okay, so by lefty standards, white male, whatever, in the 1800s was under threat. Like, I'm so confused. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Masculinity and like hunting or domination or any of that kind of stuff. But a lot of it has to do with sort of diets being lighter in animal products had long been associated with Black, Indigenous, and people of color, but particularly Asian people, right? And existing stereotypes had depicted Asian cis men as effeminate and sort of insufficiently masculine, right? Like, that's a thing that continues to this day.
Yeah.
It's not real at all, to be honest. So I don't really know where that came from. I've never seen Asian men as effeminate, not any more than anybody else, I guess you could say. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, but that is like a weird kind of stereotype. I don't really understand it, to be honest, but it is what it is. I can kind of see what they're saying there, but it's like, it's not necessarily because of soy. I think sometimes things are just kind of, kind of racist, like it does exist, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think soy is necessarily why, though. As far as like Indigenous and Black people and whatever, they eat meat. So I don't know what you're talking about. Asian people eat meat too. Everybody eats meat. So I'm like, every single group, every single culture, for the most part, there might be a couple scattered here or there, but it's at least a 98% that you're eating meat. So I don't even know what they're saying here. This is like weirdly like vegan apology in this, which you'd think would be super anti-fat acceptancy. It's really weird. I'm very confused by where this is headed.
And those stereotypes, I did not fucking know this, Those stereotypes were used to justify colonialism and colonialist projects throughout Asia.
Oh.
In 1884, there's an American neurologist who writes about Asian communities and sort of like the diets in East Asia and writes, quote, "Thus, flesh-eating nations have ever been more aggressive than those peoples whose diet is largely or exclusively vegetable.
What?
The effeminate rice eaters in India and China have again and again yielded to the superior moral courage of an infinitely smaller number of meat-eating Englishmen."
Dude, how the fuck is a British person gonna be like, we're good at colonialism because our food is better? I don't know how much you know about British food.
Yeah, to me, that just sounds like racism, but I don't know. I guess they're going to take it further. It's like people will say anything about anybody. So it doesn't matter what color you're talking about. If you're racist, you're going to say a bunch of crockpot stuff about that race. It just is what it is.
Time. Don't think that's the reason.
They haven't stolen Indian food yet.
Yeah, exactly. We have like 1.5 spices at this point.
So
wow.
while all of these sorts of foods...
So being anti-soy is now also colonialism. So this is really interesting. I don't know, where, I guess I'll ask you guys, I'm not sure exactly where, the fat acceptance stuff is beginning and the left-wing stuff is ending. As far as I know, there are plenty of left-wingers that don't eat soy. So I'm thinking, is this a bizarre fat acceptance advocacy for soy? Is that what this is? It's very bizarre. It's really weird.
Are getting attached to that idea of the sort of lefty vegan scold, right? Foods like tofu become aligned with this kind of classed liberalism, right?
Yeah.
That it's about both left-leaning politics.
That's true.
But also a certain amount of disposable income. And other foods like
That's true.
meat, which is quite expensive, become tied to conservatism in the popular imagination.
That's because of probably left-wingers viewing it that way. I don't think conservatives really view red meat as conservative. I think they think of it as just food, real hearty food. Whereas left-wingers will be oh gosh, the red meat is bad for the environment or whatever. So they kind of view red meat as conservative. It's very interesting to hear these two podcasters talk about this because they're so they act like the left never labels anything as conservative or never creates any categories, which is the complete opposite of reality. Yes, she's right, though, about tofu being seen as elitist, lefty stuff. And I think it's because it's kind of expensive air. When you get into expensive air territory, it's also the way that soy has been talked about, where it is used as a virtue signal a lot of the time, especially for environmentalism or veganism, which is tied to leftist politics or left-wing politics in America, specifically at least. So, whereas in Canada, it might not be the same. It just depends, to be honest. It could be the same, but I'm just saying, it might not necessarily be exactly the same. I knew Australians that were vegan, that were very right-wing, it's it just depends. So, but in America, yes, it absolutely is that way. And again, I understand that I have a little bit more exposure to veganism than the average, especially than the average, right-wing person, center right-wing person. So I can kind of understand that. This is kind of a weird conversation. Okay, let's continue.
So by the early 1990s, Rush Limbaugh is already sort of railing against quote unquote latte drinking liberals, right?
That's so funny. That sounds real.
They still trot that out sometimes, which is the funniest shit.
It's old. I don't hear that anymore. I don't agree. I don't think they still do. They'll say like soy latte probably, but not like latte. Anyways, that's funny though. That sounds like a boomer conservative thing to rant about.
Because lattes are now so fucking normal.
Yeah.
That's like not even like a liberal elite thing. That's like a suburban strip mall thing.
This is where we get into the like real sort of modern origins of this myth, if you're ready.
Does it start with Alex Jones?
No, it starts with 2006. We're going to start with Michael Pollan
Oh.
publishing The Omnivore's Dilemma.
We're coming for you, Pollan.
No.
We left him alive last time. It's like Saddam Hussein in the 90s. We're coming back.
Jesus Christ. So in 2006, Pollan publishes The Omnivore's Dilemma, and Rush Limbaugh really latches on.
Limbaugh was a Pollan guy?
No, he was not a Pollan guy. He was like, get off my case. I eat what I want.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a conservative. That is a conservative response.
So he was anti-Pollan. Okay.
He was totally anti-Pollan.
Okay.
Of course.
And this starts to sort of bubble up a little bit in conservative spaces. So later that same
Okay. That makes sense. That does make sense to me. That's tracking from my experience.
year, the right-wing website WorldNet Daily ran a 6-part feature on the hazards of quote-unquote health foods.
Oh, nice. Nice. What were the hazards?
The hazards were that soy and like flax and then
Flax is horrible.
a bunch of other health foods were the cause of homosexuality.
Okay, that's not true at all. That's crackpot. That's your crackpot right-wing theories.
Early puberty.
Probably not.
Puberty. And
Okay, that doesn't make any sense.
That's false, though, because the cause of homosexuality is having small hands.
so within a few years, those claims start to broaden and they start to focus in on just soy, right? Soy alone is now responsible for a quote unquote feminization of cis men. And that quote unquote feminization was reported with this sort of air of medical authority, right? That's like, it's definitely.
So what I will say is where the right got it wrong is it's not exactly feminization. So estrogen is not really the feminine hormone. It doesn't exist. That's not real. What, if anything, that would be more like progesterone. So in a woman, progesterone is what makes you more beautiful. Not necessarily estrogen. It's actually progesterone. So that's what you tend to have in a higher level than men do. And it's more of like a prothyroid hormone. It's like kind of like, you know, it's just more on the side of the thyroid, whereas estrogen is opposite. Now, again, in a woman's body, estrogen fluctuation, progesterone fluctuations, they all happen as a part of a cycle and all throughout life. It's just a part of being a woman. Your hormones are fluctuating a lot. And that's natural. So what I will say is like, that's not feminization. Like I said, actually, in a man, when he has high estrogen, he's going to probably be more angry, more lashing out, more quick to anger, or more tired, or more stubborn, or more, I don't want to talk about that right now. That type of vibe. I don't want to do this right now. That kind of energy, that's more of estrogen. That's not exactly feminizing. It's just assholizing. So that's how I would describe it. And there are many vegan men that are like this. And there are many, you know, keto guys. Like keto is not great for testosterone that act this way too. There's many a beer drinker that act this way. So see, we're taking this. We're going to spread it out. Now, over the past couple years, my estrogen has for sure come down. I have changed my whole lifestyle to lower my estrogen because it is way too high. And I can assure you, you can tell by the sound of my voice, I have not masculinized by having more testosterone. What has happened to me as a part of having more testosterone, I don't know how else to say this, but I guess I'll just say it in a more clinical way. My libido is much higher, and I'm actually a lot calmer. And that's probably the two major things. And guess what? That libido for men didn't change anything. That's not the cause of homosexuality. That's your right-wing nut takes.
Happening. We should all be freaked out, and the science is clear. A lot of that traces back to one particular story.
Okay.
That story is published in 2000.
I will say, though, when my hormones started to more normalize, I felt more of a distinction between me and women that I didn't feel before, because I think my hormones were so off that it was kind of like weird. I wasn't like a woman. I was like a weird Karen menopausal harpy woman. So not like a typical woman. I wasn't like that. But when my hormones got more regulated, it's like I became very feminine. I felt very, very much like a woman, like last year. And then now this year, I definitely can see a distinction, and it's fine. But I'm still, put me in a room full of men, I'm going to be the most feminine man in the room. Put me in a room full of women, I'm going to be probably the most masculine one in the room. Does that make sense? So I'm femme. I'm gay. I'm very feminine. And in terms of dating, I am very much take on the woman's role in a relationship. That's just the way it is. That's the best way I can describe it. So it's like the hormones did matter, but it's not like it made me more masculine. It didn't. It just made me feel more male. Does that make sense? So they're not the same thing. I think the left some of you guys kind of conflate the two things. Like being a man or a woman is not the same as being masculine or feminine. They're two different categories. So like I am a man. I don't feel like a woman at all in terms of like my body is male. I have no issue with it whatsoever. But I'm extremely feminine compared to most men. And my testosterone changing and going up, it did not masculinize me whatsoever. It just made me feel more male. Probably because I started thinking about sex like all the time, which is more male. So I'll put it to you that way. Okay, let's continue.
2009 in Men's Health.
Oh.
So
okay.
I just sent you the screen grab of the head and deck for this story.
Fuck yes, this is a question mark headline. We love a question mark headline. So it's like Men's Health, and then they have these like tags with like categories, right? It'll be like movies or books or whatever. The category of this story is soy's negative effects. Yeah. That's like the vertical.
Yeah.
And then the headline is this the most dangerous food for men? And then subheadline,
beer's worse. There's the controversial statement. Beer is worse for men.
Assuming soybean has silently infiltrated.
But if you point that out, then you'll see that the men don't care. They don't care about having high estrogen. So that's a big issue too, where you can see like a lot of, I think it's stupid to just use soy boy as an insult if you don't care about your estrogen being higher. It's like a right-wing virtue signal. It's stupid.
The American diet as what might just be the perfect protein source. It's cheap and vegetarian and could even unclog our hearts. But there may be a hidden dark side to soy.
It's not going to unclog your heart. It's not going to do any of that. That's a bunch of BS.
It has the power to undermine everything it means to be male.
No, that's not true either. But what it can do is promote hypothyroidism and make it easier to gain weight, make you depressed. It can make you moody and angry and yell all the time.
So here's my question. Based on your years of experience hosting the show with me, what do you expect this article to contain?
Maybe this is just because I've been reading too much anti-vax nonsense lately, but I'm expecting like an opening anecdote. John always felt like a man, but then he ate a patty of tofu and now he has boobs or something, some like super anecdotal, unconfirmed report. And then we're going to interview some like allegedly iconoclastic doctor. Like the scientific consensus is that soybeans are fine, but like Dr. So-and-so says that he sees patients with boobs or whatever.
God, it's like, you don't even need me here.
Yeah, I'll take the episode from here, Aubrey.
So, sorry, I have like, it's hilarious because that is like beat for fucking
Seriously?
beat.
Fuck yes.
That's funny. Oh.
That it starts with an anecdote. It starts with an anecdote. It middles with an anecdote. It ends with an anecdote. This is one person's story.
Oh.
The article focused on a guy named James Price, who was a retired U.S. Army intelligence officer who was diagnosed with gynecomastia, which is enlarged mammary glands in men. He says that he went in to seek treatment after feeling really emotionally dysregulated for a long time. And he was like, it was above and beyond this thing, but it was around the time my wife died. And I was like, buddy, you're going to feel emotionally dysregulated after your partner dies.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, it was more than that. But I was like, oh, this feels like a very funny joke about like a dude has a feeling and is like, I got to see a doctor.
Yeah. It must be the soybeans.
Yeah, totally. So he went to the doctor and they ran a bunch of tests and spent a bunch of time investigating. And they found that this one guy had elevated estrogen levels. According to Men's Health, he had roughly 8 times that would be expected.
That's harsh.
For other cis men.
Okay.
As the story unfolds, we find out that this guy, James Price, found out that he was lactose intolerant some years earlier, so he had switched to soy milk.
Okay.
And when the doctor asked him how much soy milk he drank, he said it was like one of his favorite drinks.
Oh, yeah. That's bad. Very interesting.
And that he estimated that he drank about 3 quarts of soy milk.
Ooh, that's horrible. Yeah, so it definitely matters how much you're having, for sure. Okay? So if you're just having a little tiny bit of soy, it's not as big of a deal. I don't personally have it ever because I am very hypo, and I just don't need to take any risk. I won't even have soy lecithin, nothing. I don't want anything. Soy lecithin is kind of poofalicious anyway, so no. But I'm pretty strict, but if you have like a drop of it on you, you're not going to die. If you're drinking 3 quarts of soy milk a day, you're going to have problems. You would have problems as a woman. You will have problems no matter who you are. That's a lot. So those effects will compound horribly over 3 quarts a day. That's insane.
He has like a big gulp cup full of soy milk next to him at all
That's
times.
a couple of big gulps full of soy milk,
a lot.
right? So this is like entirely anecdotal, right? We're just talking about this one guy, and then the piece drops into these sweeping alarmist claims about Americans consuming too much soy.
Right, because you can probably do a correlation with like over the last 10 years.
It's so interesting too how they only talk about soy milk or like tofu, and it's like soy is in everything. If you look at the grocery store, it's everywhere. It's in everything. So that's why I say like the effects compound. If you have a teaspoon of soy sauce in a day, it's not that big of a deal. But if you have crackers that have soy in them, you have meat that has soy in it, you have this that has soy in it, that has soy in it, your chocolate has soy in it, your chips have soybean oil in it, or this was fried, you went to McDonald's, those fries are in soybean oil. Like if you think of how much soy that actually is, it's like that could be everything you're eating could have soy in it. If that's the case, then you're going to have a lot of problems. Absolutely.
consumption in America is quintupled or something, because it probably did by 2009.
Yes, I mean, that's essentially what they did. So here's what they have to say. They talk about the AAP recommending cow's milk formula over soy formula in a report in 2008, which is true. They did. They note that 35% of bottle-fed babies in the U.S. at the time received at least some of their protein from soy.
Okay.
They go on, this is more maintenance phase catnip. This is a quote from the actual piece.
Okay, it says, a 2001 study in the Journal of the American Medical Association surveyed over 800 adults ages 20 to 34 who were fed either soy-based or cow's milk formulas during their infancy. One of the few differences to emerge was that the group raised on soy formula regularly used more asthma and allergy medications in adulthood. Was this just a quirk of the sampling? Or could it represent a subtle impairment of immune function? What?
Right.
This is false because we know that the immune function is related to the mercury that they're getting in the vaccines.
Correct.
So it's the measles
and also,
virus.
like, surveying an existing group of...
If you have high estrogen, it promotes a more autoimmune response in the body. So that's why. It also will increase adrenaline. So if your estrogen goes up, your adrenaline goes up. If your adrenaline is up a lot, it can cause more allergies and that kind of thing too. So it can definitely be related to the soy. But it's like definitely downstream of being on a bottle. Like it's like they never stopped having it. It just continues on, right? It's that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what they're not acknowledging. Like these people are having soy longer, so they're gonna have more issues. You know what I'm saying? So
people who have allergies and are eating foods that are more common in allergy-friendly spaces.
Yeah.
Feels like, yeah, no shit. If you take allergy meds, you might be more tuned in to your own personal sort of like health and well-being. You might be more likely to gravitate toward like health foods. You might, you know what I mean? Like there's so much going on here.
many people have gut irritation from eating soy and things like peanuts, for example.
And instead they do this dumb shit like heavy lifting question mark thing.
This is very similar to the moving of the goalpost thing among anti-vaxxers, where it's like, it's this vaccine, it's this other vaccine, it's autism, no, it's everything, no, it's allergies. Where it's like, okay, if people...
It's hypo, which hypothyroidism is very broad. It affects the whole body, that's why. And it will affect different people differently. So, yeah, they, for some reason, like, they see that there's something, but they cannot just connect it to something that makes sense. But it's just very broad, because two different people can be hypothyroid and they're going to have different symptoms. It's just how it is. So, and it depends on how severe it is versus how mild it is. It's very different. So it's like, yeah, but if your thyroid is messed up, it will affect your entire body. Your hormones, that kind of stuff, it affects your whole body. It affects everything. In my journey, I've had frozen shoulder related to hypo. I've had breathing issues, like shortness of breath related to hypo. I've had hypo cough that's related to hypo. I've had facial flushing, which is related to high serotonin, which is related to hypo. I've had, hair loss or hair thinning. That's hypo. I've had, it just goes on and on and on. Mental health issues, depression, anxiety, hypo, right? It's very holistic. It's a very holistic disease. So it will affect everything. I also, when I was younger, I did have asthma. I did have allergies a lot and that kind of stuff. And I've been fat forever, It's definitely a thing. I don't have them anymore, but guess what? I stopped eating so much estrogen, so I don't really get asthma anymore. Okay? So it's a thing.
People are consuming more estrogen and it's causing this guy's very specific condition. That's one thing, but then we have a completely different narrative here where it's like asthma and allergies.
Right.
But those are all like different biological mechanisms.
Yes. But something like hypothyroidism, it can affect your whole body. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't think they acknowledge that. Something like obesity, for example, will affect your whole body as well. I guess they can't process that something can affect your whole body.
By which it would be affecting you. I feel like there's this idea that foods are just like good for you or bad for you. And like anything bad that happens, people are like, oh, it's this food.
Right. So like it does it again with.
It's very much gray areas, gradients, and amounts. So it's how bad is it? Is the soy fermented? If it's fermented, it's better. How much are you having? If you have a tiny bit, it's a lot better than if you're having 3 quarts of soy milk a day. It's how hypo are you? If you're not very hypo at all, or if you're not hypo, the soy might not affect you at all. If you're severely hypo and morbidly obese, you might feel really horrible when you have soy. You know, it's a lot of different factors. I myself would never suggest soy pretty much ever, but it's not going to kill you. Like if I ever had soy sauce again in my life, I wouldn't be shocked. Does that make sense? But I'm not going to have it now because I'm trying to lose weight. It's not going to help. And I am, you know, just barely coming out of severe hypo. I don't want to do anything that would push me back over that edge. So no, I'm not doing it. But you may be in a completely different circumstance, and I don't have anything to say to you if you eat it. I'm not going to come after you or anything. But if you're eating tons and tons and tons, it's like, you're going to have problems, whether I say something or not.
There is a piece where they sort of like cite a couple of papers suggesting that one component of soy is linked to erectile dysfunction in animals. Okay. And then they do a whole thing being like, what if it's true in people too?
Yeah.
And it's like, chill the fuck out. This is an article that's not ready to be written yet.
Right.
There's just not enough evidence here to say anything for sure.
Right.
But instead they turn in this like, I'm just asking questions kind of draft.
We're all eating soybeans and now the mice can't even get boners anymore. Nobody wants to talk about it. No, but this is, I feel like there's like a fundamental kind of mismatch here in that I think that it is good to do studies on like random shit. Like I don't really mind these kinds of studies being done, but I think that one of the fundamental challenges of like the information age is that because everybody has access to so much information, like it's very easy to look up academic journals. Mm-hmm. You can easily take these super preliminary studies and be like, we're all growing boobs because of the soybean. But like, I don't want to like throw the scientific baby out with the bathwater here. I think doing like animal studies is fine. It's just that they get interpreted and like spread around like our bad information environment in this like really obnoxious way.
Yeah, totally. So it is.
Yeah, so their stance on science is really weird because it's just very like whatever they like is science and whatever they don't isn't. I mean, we've seen this in other videos or other episodes when they talk about studies involving obesity. They will make whatever the hell up in regards to it, or they'll be sure to choose whatever they want. It is what it is. It's cringe. I don't take what they say seriously in regards to that at all.
True that soy contains something called phytoestrogens. Mm-hmm. Phytoestrogens exist in plants, but they have some chemical similarities to the estrogen that is produced by humans. They're similar to estrogen, but they are not human estrogen.
Oh.
And also, even when we are talking about like straight up human estrogen, despite, you know, we sort of characterize estrogen as like a women's hormone or something, right? Mm-hmm. But people of all sexes and genders produce estrogen.
Right.
So like you produce estrogen, I produce estrogen. I also produce testosterone. We just have them in different balances.
Right.
True.
Phytoestrogens are named phytoestrogens because they are chemically similar, but decidedly sort of not identical. Phyto just means plant. And when humans eat phytoestrogens, they are metabolized differently. They are put to work differently. Like it all sort of works differently, right? When you eat phytoestrogens versus when your body produces estrogen.
It really feels like these people are just like going through Wikipedia and looking for any excuse. And they're like, ooh, phytoestrogen.
It has the word estrogen in it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, do you have any actual knowledge of this substance?
You can have estrogen from the environment. There's xenoestrogens. There's phytoestrogens. Even something like grapes. Grapes are really high in estrogen. I wouldn't suggest it for somebody who's hypo. I'd be like, hey, don't have the grape jam every day. It's not helping you. You know, it's like, but it depends on the person, and it depends especially on your liver health, because your liver is what gets rid of excess estrogen. So if your liver is fatty or not functioning well, then you should be having the lowest amount of estrogenic foods that you can, because you likely already have high estrogen. I personally have fatty liver, and so I have to be really careful about my estrogen consumption because my liver is impaired in getting rid of excess estrogen. And phytoestrogens do affect your estrogen levels. So do xenoestrogens. It can be a chemical in the environment that raises your estrogen. They're not right. That isn't right. I'm sorry. It does have a similar effect. That's why that guy got boobs from drinking 3 quarts of 3 quarts of estrogen, 3 quarts of soy a day, which is an insanely high amount for the record.
That's how it works. It's like, da-da-da-da. It has estrogen in it.
So that Men's Health piece comes out in 2009. In 2010, we get 2 big research reviews, 2 big meta-analyses that show no compelling evidence that a soy-rich diet impacts testosterone levels, sperm counts, or anything else to do with cis men's health, right?
Maybe you're just a pussy because you're a pussy, Todd. It's not because of the soybeans. This is very similar to the mercury in vaccine stuff, where it's just like, yeah, if this was true, we would fucking know it, and it would be super obvious.
Yeah.
There's vast...
It is pretty obvious, but I don't know. If you don't want to see things, then you don't want to see things. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I see it. It's like, you can see it in alcohol. You can see how people act. They're tired. They're listless. They're anxious. The more they drink, they're like really anxious. You know, they're angry all the time. It's like, yeah, I see it. But they're just really focused on the gender aspect. They're really focused on superficial things like the sound of your voice or how big your hands are or something. And it's like, no, it goes a lot deeper than that. Like I said, when I had high estrogen, it just made me into like a Karen harpy. When it went down, I felt more just like youthful and still feminine as hell. So it doesn't affect your femininity or masculinity. It just doesn't. So that's true. But yeah, it does affect your estrogen levels. It will affect thyroid health. If you're trying to lose weight, it's never going to help you. It's going to cause a problem. It's always going to be holding you down, holding you back. Okay?
Differences between populations and like how much soy they're eating.
Right.
Like it would be
I can see, like, this is their view. If this is the view they have on soy, then sure. You know, that's probably why they're somewhat fat acceptancy and stuff, because they're not understanding it's not just soy. It's a lot of stuff that has a lot of estrogen in it.
really fucking easy to measure.
So Men's Health sort of unwittingly plants sort of a seed. And by
So I don't think you can just tie it to soy alone. I don't think that that would work. You'd have to look at somebody's diet holistically. How much estrogen are they ingesting across the board? That's where you would see the difference. But is soy one of those estrogenic things? Yes, it is. However, it's not the only estrogenic thing that most men do. Like I said, beer is drastically more estrogenic. Many men drink a lot of beer. Huge problem.
2015, we get what becomes, frankly, a real modern classic of the internet.
Oh.
I sent you a link.
I'm afraid.
This is what we will be watching.
Oh, this shit. I've seen this, Aubrey. I've seen this so many times.
Well, see it again.
I love this shit. Okay, the title is Alex Jones Gay Bomb Rant. All right, let's not do 1.5 because I feel like we want
want to really let it breathe.
Full experience, you know?
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know,
Yeah,
you
this is
guys.
when you be-
This is kind of just like left-wing virtue signal vibes. So do you guys want to... I don't know if I'm going to do a part 2 on this, but I think I'm like done. I think my brain cells have taken all they can. It's late. But let me know what you guys think. I hope I at least got you to consider soy consumption. Just look at what you're eating. Look at how much of it you're having. And I would just suggest reducing it, especially if you're having issues, especially if you're not healthy, especially if you're fat, especially if you have fatty liver, especially if you have hypothyroidism. I would look at it and reduce it. It will help you. Okay? But yes, it has nothing to do with how masculine or feminine you are. It doesn't cause you, like, that whole thing, it doesn't matter at all. So it's not superficial. It won't make you gay or straight. It has nothing to do with your sexuality either. Like, it doesn't change anything like that. There was a common belief, like when I was doing this diet and I was doing all this stuff to increase my testosterone and lower my estrogen, it was funny because some of my viewers at the time were joking with me and they're like, oh gosh, like, are you going to turn straight or whatever? And I was like, no. I was like, no, because the more my testosterone goes up, the more attractive men are. So the more I think about sex with men. So no, that doesn't work that way, but it's funny. But yeah, I mean, people on all sides can be crackpot when it comes to this stuff. I'm just itching my foot. But at the end of the day, what's true is true. How much estrogen are you having? How many layers of estrogen are you having? It's not just the soy, it's in a lot of other stuff. And some of the biggest offenders are going to be your legumes in general, your hops, so marijuana and alcohol. It's going to be grapes. It's going to be even strawberries are pretty estrogenic. So I don't really eat grapes and strawberries. Not to say I never will again, but again, not going to help with weight loss, right? Dates are very high in estrogen. Any kind of nut milk, it's poofalicious. It's that kind of thing. It doesn't help. So a lot of the vegan foods are really high in estrogen. So I would not suggest it. But again, so are things like beer and marijuana and a lot of other stuff. So it's like there's even more estrogen in conventional dairy and meat versus grass-fed or organic. So if you can afford organic, it's better to have that because it's less estrogen. So it's like you just have to think about what you can do, what you can reduce, and the reduction will help balance things out further. But it's not just soy. It's a lot of other stuff. And yeah, that's my thesis and I'm sticking to it. So hope you guys enjoyed this. This is supposed to be fun, so don't take it like too, I don't know, don't get offended over politics over this. That's stupid to me. But anyways, you guys, I'll see you guys later. Have a good day, night, whatever. See you soon. Bye.